Before the sun has even kissed the mountaintop, a whisper of sound gives them away. In the soft blue light before sunrise, an anxious male scurries to position himself in the choice spot of the dancing ground. The dawn breaks, and the blue light turns to amber, stretching out to bathe the valley in rich, golden tones. The lone male is joined by other early risers, bent on challenging his position. They scramble to and fro across the dancing ground in a seemingly aimless fashion. But actually it's a strictly choreographed dance passed down through the centuries, a contest that dictates the hierarchy of the flock, determining which of the males will win the privilege of breeding with a female and earn the right to pass on their genetic code to the next generation. The dancing ground is called a lek. It's an area chosen by the grouse for its visibility, so the males can see and respond to each other. The mesh structures crisscrossing the lek are traps. These were put into place several days ago by fish and game biologists to capture some of the birds. The first morning was a success, but since then the birds have become wary. Unless a female appears on the lek, causing the males to become careless in their frenzy to please her, the chance of a capture is pretty slim. Research biologist Scott Gardner watches the activity from a tent perched on the edge of the dancing ground. As long as he stays inside, the birds are willing to ignore him.
They try to get these prime territories, and once they get them, as you can see, that one male hardly moved from that one spot. Once they get them, they defend them really well.
The pageantry is as old as time. The ruling bird is challenged by a usurper. He responds in kind. They dance and bicker, then settle in to face off, never relaxing their guard. Suddenly, in exasperation, the ruling bird turns away and once again begins to drum the earth, establishing this choice spot as his. The challenger eventually finds the stakes are too high and concedes, exiting gracefully. Juvenile males are destined to watch from the fringes. One fellow seems to surprise himself by testing a call. When he receives no reaction, he pauses, then stages a dignified retreat.
You don't see a lot of those juvenile males. You'll hear them way off in the distance. Slowly they learn about the lek over the lekking season and move on and get a little tighter and a little tighter.
Although Idaho's sharptail numbers are the highest they've been since biologists began keeping records in the 1960s, we know from historical documents that the Columbian sharptail was much more prevalent in the time of Lewis and Clark. Though no records were kept, scientists speculate that the drop in sharptail populations in the last century was directly related to the settlement of the West. Early rangeland abuses damaged nesting areas and destroyed critical winter habitat. Soon, the Sharptail grouse had disappeared from much of its historical range. But things began to turn around for the Sharptail grouse in the mid-1980s with the initiation of the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. It's a federal plan that subsidizes landowners who are willing to seed and set aside a field for a 10-year period. These areas have become critical habitat for Sharptail grouse and other species. Thanks to the private landowner, the bird population has rebounded. The trapping operation is an effort to capture a portion of the sharptails from these healthy populations and move them back into parts of their historic range. Although this morning was a bust, back at what is affectionately known as Grouse House, biologists have a number of sharptails from previous captures ready to be released into new areas.
There's a volunteer right there.
The birds are held in captivity less than a week. Before releasing a group, the scientists want to be certain there's a good mix of males and females. Each grouse is weighed, banded with a leg band, and then a percentage of the birds are fitted with a solar-powered radio collar.
And it's a very small, light, compact package that simply fits around over the bird's head and around its neck. We've been using these packages for about 5 years with virtually no trouble so far as we can tell and no adverse impacts on the birds themselves.
The radios will tell researchers if the transplanted birds survive, whether the females nest this year and bring off a healthy brood, and finally, how the sharptails use their new habitat. Early the next morning, the birds arrive at Shoshone Basin in south-central Idaho, an area the species once inhabited and one that biologists have determined could support a population again. It's important that the birds stay together as a flock, so the actual release is done by a primitive sort of remote control.
Okay, what I'm going to do is pull the rope taut so that and open the box up just gradually, giving the birds a little light at a time so that it's not a drastic opening of the box. And let them move out at their own pace.
The birds comply, peeking out curiously. Soon, they leisurely move up the hillside, right at home in their historic habitat.
In the sense, it is exciting to bring a bird that was native back to an area that they once existed in and no longer exist, to bring them back as a part of the community, to fulfill and complete that community in that situation.